From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you once again across the Sunshine State, coming to you live on FM, AM, and worldwide online. Go to our website, aneighborschoice.com, and make it your homepage for all of our news. We break news on all the topics: economics, finance, understanding the future of science. We do this because we are excited about challenging the sacred cows of groupthink and unlocking a paradigm of win-win solutions. You have the power right where you are right now to change the world, but you have to have the courage to think for yourself and then speak for yourself. Don't allow people to silence you because you are different or that you have a passion that people may not understand or may not agree with your unique angle on how the world works. Go out and prove them wrong. That's what this program's about. We celebrate diverse thinking. We celebrate the American spirit of innovation, ingenuity, and perseverance. And that's all wrapped up in the idea that you have to have the courage to step outside of the crowd, step outside of herd mentality, and say, you know what? We're not going to stay in the old shrunken place of tribalism. We want to have real solutions. So we're going to talk about science today for our Thursday edition of the show. Every day, A Neighbor's Choice talks about politics and culture, economics and finance. But on Thursday, we shift gears for a moment and talk about science and you. And to do so, we have our Chief Science Officer and physicist, Dr. Yu, with us. How you doing?
Thank you, David, for having me on. I'm doing great.
Yeah, and it's always great to hear from you. So we are going to hit the ground running today. There's some interesting stories going out. Let's start with this story at CNN.com. Hubble images reveal new aspect of mysterious dark matter in the universe. This was published just a few days ago. The quest for dark matter just got a little more interesting, the article says. While stars, planets, and other celestial bodies may seem like bright jewels that stand out against the dark void of space, they only make up a small percentage of the universe. And so let's go down where these dark matter can't be seen because it doesn't interact with other particles in space or emit, absorb, or reflect light. Now, astronomers, the article goes on to say, have discovered that smaller clumps of dark matter associated with individual cluster galaxies were concentrated enough to produce gravitational lensing effects that were 10 times stronger than expected. Using the Hubble Space Telescope and the European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope in Chile, the scientists detected these distortions by studying 11 massive galaxy clusters. The details afforded by both telescopes showed small, distorted images of distant galaxies within larger gravitational lensing distortion in the core of each galaxy cluster. The small distortions look like arcs and smears in images taken by the telescopes. Dr. Yu, what do you think of this story?
That's a very exciting story for physicists. If you are familiar with, if you know what is the biggest problem in physics today, to try to find out what is the dark matter and what is the dark energy. So that's some kind of Nobel Prize winning worth research. So it's super important. So I just wanted to explain why this article happen now, why so significant to common people, to everyday people. So one thing is we find out the standard model in physics. So that's what all the updated the quantum mechanics or include everything, and cannot explain this dark matter and the dark energy, include gravity. So it cannot explain this phenomena. What that means? So these are called beyond the standard model. So if we discover anything of these things, we can tell something. We have to somehow rewrite physics. So one of the things is the dark matter. So the name dark matter means something it does not have a light, so we cannot visibly observe that. So that's some puzzle. So we find the universe missing matter because we can observe the motion of the galaxies, the cluster galaxies. They are motion too fast. That means they're missing some matter missing gravity to hold them together. Otherwise, they cannot rotating too fast. So, meaning by how much? On average, the missing matter in universe, everywhere in universe, on average is 6 times different. However, if a nearby cluster galaxy or cluster galaxy, you would find the concentration, missing matter concentration is higher, so 10 times. So what this observation is different than all other observations is that we are not only observe called the gravitational lensing effect. That's basically says that any light passing through a huge mass body, the light will be bended. When you're bending light, we call it distortion of light or distortion space or whatever. And you will see, smeared light instead of a very crystal clear. You will see a smeared and the ring type of light, surrounding a galaxy, edge of a galaxy or a cluster of a galaxy. So this observation more specific. This is that we observe the gravitational lensing means we have a gravity bending the light. That were 10 times stronger than expected. So which match the missing dark matter phenomenon. So that's why it is thinking, okay, we observe the dark matter and not only in general, we not only on the cluster of galaxies, and we observe dark matter through single galaxies or somehow. So that makes them as more different than all previous observations.
So how does this fit with your understanding of the world? Just tell us your perspective on this.
That's very good. So in my understanding, in my research, we don't need dark matter. The so-called dark matter. It is actually the magnetic fluid. It already exists everywhere in space. So this is different than ether. Ether we know is a mysterious medium, but this is just a regular magnetic fluid. That's the carrier of light. So how do I know it? Whenever you see the light carried by electromagnetic medium. So the oscillation of the medium. So that's the carrier of light. Since we are able to see light from almost the beginning of the Big Bang, which is 13.8 billion light years distance away, right? So 13.8 billion years. We can see the light, almost the beginning of light. That means from what we are now, all the way back to the beginning, the Big Bang operation, is filled with this continuous magnetic medium. So when that medium oscillation, so that we can see the light. So the medium exists since beginning of the universe. So that's now the mysterious material is something we don't know. It's nothing more. It's a magnetic field, magnetic matter, magnetic field made by magnetic matter. Okay, it could be infinitely small, but continuously fill out the space. So that interaction between why we see the interaction with missing matter, the magnetic field, the magnetic medium is a matter. That matter we never accounted for. We only say space is a vacuum. That's how we do our calculation in the cosmology, of gravitational effect. We only calculate, we observed matter. We never accounted the medium transmitted matter. So that's the matter. That's exerted force comes from magnetic force. So the 6 times or missing 10 times of the matter is actually a magnetic force, which could be billions of times higher than gravitational force. So we do not missing force. We do not missing matter. Only we're missing is a correct understanding what is the gravitational force. It's actually magnetic attraction.
And this is something that would explain away dark matter. It's just it's this magnetic fluid. Is it the word magnetic fluid that's taking place?
You can say magnetic fluid. The fluid means solid or liquid or a liquid or gas. So basically magnetic gas clouds, you can say. But however, it's filled continuously in space. So that's why you can see the light. If absent of this magnetic medium, we won't be able to see light. So light is oscillation of a magnetic medium. It's not a particle traveling through empty space. That's not the correct concept.
There's an image that was going around online. A listener sent it to me that showed the neural pathways in the brain looking very similar to the same of the filaments of matter in our universe. And it looked very similar to, it was an illustration, but do you think that's a representation that's accurate to how it really looks? And why would there be a similar look between the neural networks in our brain and these different galaxies around our universe?
Yes, I think that's a very good observation. If you think about how the neural system, formed in body, this is quite similar as all the galaxies, the star galaxies, are formed in universe is quite similar. And more important, the force, whenever they form in some structure, they have to have a force, right? They all come from the same fundamental universal force, which is magnetic force. So during human, embryo part, your formation is a free floating, also make them a free floating and interaction and form different network, magnetic force, which is the same force, magnetic force, or you can say electromagnetic force, same force form the universe. So I do see them same similarity because they use the same force as a medium.
John Online, listener, asks, if magnetic medium is matter, does this mean what we know as space is matter?
Oh, yes. This is a space we call it kind of spiritual, is a consciousness. I want to say consciousness is the phenomenon of matter. So all matter has a magnetic field, let's say. So when you have a consciousness, that means you're thinking, you have a phase through interaction of a matter, magnetic field and interaction with your physical body. So in that sense, I would say consciousness is the field of the matter. So it's born from the matter. It's coexistent with the matter. So
what is space then? What is space?
Oh, space. Space, I would think space is just like an empty container. It's empty, so it can hold things inside.
And what's that container?
So basically,
so what would that container be?
It's a dimension. It's void. We can say it's void, or it's a mathematical dimension of a length. So we have a concept of a length. So length has a three-dimensional. So space means it's a void. It can hold matter and stuff in it. And I do not consider, I believe your listeners try to understand the very confusing term of space in physics. In physics, if you're talking about the traditional quantum mechanics or classical mechanics, just a three-dimensional extension, the length extension of three dimensions. But in physics, especially in called relativity physics, we're talking about the space considered like something called the continuous medium. It's an elastic medium. It can stretch, it can compress, it can bend, it can distort. So that's not the right concept in my research of the physical world. The physical world space is a void. It can hold things inside.
You're listening to Science and You. We're here with physicist Dr. Yu. I'm David Granosky. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll get into the question that is on the minds of many people. Is there signs of life on Venus? Are we headed to Venus next? You'll find out in just a moment. Stay tuned. David Granosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
I'm attorney Young Kim. The financial problems caused by the coronavirus nightmare are not going away anytime soon. If you are behind on your credit card or mortgage payments, or bill collectors are harassing you, there are ways to get them off your back and legally wipe the slate clean. Call Consumer Law Attorneys at 888-99-FRESH for a free consultation. Learn how we can stop the bank and collection companies and help people in debt get a fresh start. Call 888-99-FRESH, 37374. Main office, St. Petersburg.
Our monetary system is failing. Negative interest rates, growing debt, highly speculative market, and the dollar is being devalued by the Fed. Investing your wealth has never been more challenging. Who wants to earn just 1% interest annually in a savings account? There is another option, monetary metals. They pay interest on gold, in gold, with no storage costs ever. Visit interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. So, are you ready to go to Venus? Is that your next destination? Probably have to wear a mask. We return now to Science and You. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Granosky. You can email us hello@aneighborschoice.com. We're talking about science with our physicist friend, Dr. Yu. And I'm looking at this story, Dr. Yu, that says it's in Yahoo that in a lucky coincidence, a spacecraft is scheduled to fly by Venus just weeks after researchers announced finding potential signs of life. And this has happened because astronomers have detected signs of potential microbial life on Venus, the presence of phosphine gas. This is something that you typically on Earth only find in the presence of bacteria. Dr. Jane Greaves, who is an astronomy professor at Cardiff University, says it's very hard to explain the presence of phosphine without life. And maybe there's an explanation that phosphine gas can be done without having life, and I'll ask you that in just a moment. But what's interesting is that in a major coincidence, there's a spacecraft that's scheduled, it's on its way to Mercury, but it happens to be just weeks away from flying by Venus. So what do you think of this story? A couple of stories here, but the most important, I think everybody wants to know is this presence of detecting this flammable toxic phosphine gas, is this a sign that there's bacteria and living organisms on Venus?
Yes. You know, when I first find this article, I was struggled. If we really have a sign of life, can we explain those UFO phenomena? Being in public, in public by a defense department. I said, if there's any type of UFO activities, so the aliens from Venus could be the closest one. So, yeah, I thought that's somehow interesting. But let me bring down to the Earth. Actually, the discovery is observed from Earth, observed the gas clouds around the Venus has a sign of the presence of phosphine. The phosphine, phosphine gas, in the gas cloud. So, but based on whatever we observed, called the natural occurrence of phosphine on Earth, always associated with bacteria. It's a byproduct of bacteria. That means a living organ. So if we have a natural occurrence of phosphine, so that means, we could infer there's life in Venus. So let me explain one thing. Why we are so interested in explore Mars instead of Venus, right? Actually, we explored both planets, use spacecraft before. So why we lost interest in Venus? Because Venus has covered as a huge gas cloud. It's like a greenhouse. And the temperature near the surface, solid surface on the Venus, nearby 800 to 900 Fahrenheit degrees. So that means human cannot survive. So why we go to Mars? Because we think Mars, we can have a human being, can colonize, can move into the Mars. But the one thing I wanted to say, how to know more detail about this called microbial life? So we happen to have a spacecraft flying by. We sent it out 2 years ago. So we could be, almost 3 years ago. And we could be, fly by the Venus just next month. So that could be provide more evidence.
Well, we're out of time, Dr. Yu. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Science and You will be back next Thursday. Don't miss it. I'm David Gronowski. Back in just a moment as we turn to the world of economics.
What time of year it is.
Hurricane conditions in the next 36 hours.
You know what hurricanes can do.
Devastating damage expected.
Well, we want you to know, no matter how bad things get,
Power outages.
This is life-threatening.
you can stay up to date with the latest information here. Your home for news, talk, and information. And remember, we'll keep an eye on the tropics. You keep an ear on us.
Got batteries in a flashlight.
The all-new News Talk 1040 WHBO.
We got a radio.
Help us keep employees on the payroll. Airline CEOs are asking White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to move forward on a COVID-19 relief package. American's Doug Parker.
We made that plea today to Mr. Meadows. He's heard it before. He understands. We believe they're very much interested in getting to a deal.
More than 30,000 U.S. airline employees could be furloughed when the relief provided by the CARES Act expires in October. New federal charges for Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, two former associates of President Trump's personal attorney Rudy Giuliani. They involve soliciting foreign money for the use in the 2018 midterm elections. High water rescues continue in areas hit hard by Hurricane Sally, like Pensacola, Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis urging people to stay off the roads.
Just understand, if you're somebody that is just kind of going out to drive, now may not be the best time to do that. It's really slowing down being able to get all the utility trucks where they need to be.
Daria Albinger, ABC News.
We are soaring high across the Sunshine State here on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gronowski. Happy to have this time across the I-4 corridor on FM and AM to bring you a different perspective, a perspective that cuts through the noise and confusion of fake news and provides information that is relevant to you and your family's life in a way that's not built on partisanship and a low-resolution tribalism. It's actually based on common sense and practical value that can help your life. Joining me now to talk about topics in this vein is the president of the Mises Institute, which is one of the leading free market research groups in the world, Jeff Deist. How you doing, Jeff?
Doing great, David. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on the program. And I wanted to touch on some of this story that I saw out of Nashville with you. I don't know if you'd got a chance to see this, but it says COVID-19 emails from Nashville mayor's office show disturbing revelation. The corona cases, the article says, on Lower Broadway may have been so low that the mayor's office and the Metro Health Department decided to keep it secret. Emails between the mayor's senior advisor and the health department reveal only a partial picture, but what they reveal is disturbing. The discussion involves the low number of coronavirus cases emerging from bars and restaurants and how to handle it. And most disturbingly, how to keep it from the public. This is very disturbing to me, Jeff. That this is it's what we've been talking about, but now we see some smoking gun evidence.
Well, it's a terrible story, first of all, having the mayor of a major city and some of his health department officials basically cover up information that the public ought to know. And in this case, that information is that there's been a tiny number of COVID case transmissions. That doesn't mean anybody actually gets sick or dies. That just means someone's exposed to COVID potentially at bars and restaurants in Nashville. I mean, if we think about this for a second, David, this is just bizarro world. You would think that in a city like Nashville that is so dependent on nightlife and bars and restaurants and music venues and tourism, it's basically the Hollywood of country music. You would think that the mayor would be doing everything in his power to allow bars and restaurants to stay open if things could be done in a safe manner. And instead, he's doing the opposite. Now, why would he go out of his way when it's his own tax base, his own tax revenue for his own city? Now, apparently there are some city council members in Nashville who object to the mayor's handling of all this, who object to the shutdown of bars and restaurants, and who have been involved in uncovering the truth here. But for the mayor, the executive of the city, to purposefully want to reduce the tax revenues, it's just crazy. It shows a lust for power, a lust for control. It shows something dark, I think, in the human psyche that we often see reflected in politicians. I think it's in all of us, but maybe people who run for office and hold office exhibit it more prominently. And it makes no sense. Why would he want to kill his own tax base? Because apparently he just enjoys the thrill of power. You know, this idea that we're going to boss people around and tell people what to do. And because it's a big city, he happens to be a Democrat. He leans to the left, and maybe part of this is all bound up in this hatred of Trump this desire to make COVID a big deal, to create a new normal, whatever it takes to sort of upset what they feel is the trajectory of this country. But it shows you that this guy is anything but a public servant. He doesn't work for the people of Nashville. He's attempting to be a monarch over the people of Nashville. It's pathetic. It's upside down. And here's the thing, David. When it comes to governors, most state constitutions, in fact, 49 of them, have a process for impeaching the governor. And it looks a lot like the federal constitution. You basically have the legislature conduct a trial. Oftentimes, there are also recall processes, referendum processes. We saw that a few years back in California when Gray Davis was recalled, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor in a special election. But when it comes to mayors, it gets a lot more murky. There may or may not be any kind of authorizing legislation or removal process on the books. So all you can hope is that this guy's term is just about up, and at the very least, he gets bounced out of office. But more importantly, I would hope that he would be removed from office now, or even criminally prosecuted. I mean, if he is violating state law, he's certainly violating federal due process, and I suspect due process under the Tennessee state constitution. There's no question about that. So at the very least, this guy ought to be removed from office. But I would argue that criminal prosecution might be warranted.
Yeah, one of the city council members in Nashville, in the article on Fox 17, says we raised taxes 34% and put hundreds, literally thousands of people out of work that are now worried about losing their homes, their apartments, and we did it on bogus data. That should be illegal.
Well, this is an economic crisis. This isn't a public health crisis. If you look in the Constitution of the United States, if you look in the Constitution of the state of Tennessee, I guarantee you it does not say, well, government has to do all these things before it deprives you of your liberty to go out and work, or your liberty to assemble with other people, or your liberty to go to church, or your liberty to operate your business. It has to provide you with due process before it does that. Except if there's a public health crisis, then it's A-okay. No, it doesn't say that. Okay, so public health has nothing to do with the legality of this. The government is not there to create a perfectly safe environment for us. It is there, if you believe it should be, it is there to help secure our rights. And part of those rights are the ability to go out and work and make a living and live your life and assemble with other people. Mm-hmm. So, none of this is about public health. This is an economic crisis, but it's largely a self-inflicted one. Now, I certainly argue that there were all kinds of baked-in problems with the economy prior to COVID, that there were huge problems with the federal budget, with the Federal Reserve and its monetary policy, with state governments and their pension problems, with local governments relying on bond measures and bailouts and basically overpaying their public employees, creating, again, pension crises at the local level. Okay, there were lots of economic problems in America because we'd been sort of having this free lunch mentality for so long. But when you use COVID as an excuse to shut down the economy, then that's a little different. I mean, that is a self-inflicted wound. And I hope, small consolation, but I hope someday historians look back on this and properly identify it as a self-inflicted wound, and that our kids, our grandkids, shake their heads and say, what the hell were they doing, and learn something from it.
Right. Yeah, that's the real fight that we need to keep focusing on is the culture. Culture. And of course, people say that, and then they don't know anything about how to deal with culture. And that's what we try to unlock on this show by diving into anthropology and why is it that humans have had these little, state-like rituals and things for so long, because we want to understand what we're dealing with here. And it is disturbing, though, Jeff, because I think one thing about this year that continues to prove what I've talked about with, mimetic theory and everything about the idea of human beings being sheep-like and the way we need to scapegoat common enemies. As you can tell, look at this Nashville story, that humans are not, especially those with a monopoly of power, they don't act in a rational way in the sense of like what a normal person would act. I guess on a psychopath pathic measure of rational about power and insane lust for power. I guess from that framework, you can make some rational arguments for some of the stuff. But the idea of lying to people and then not doing anything, it reminds me of what Nassim Taleb says about people who don't have skin in the game. They never get to bear the consequences for the terrible, horrible things they do to people, you know?
Well, you've talked on your show in the past about Rene Girard and the concept of scapegoating. This is kind of the opposite. I think there's something very human in this desire to sanctify certain people. Celebrities, stars, athletes, singers, movie actors, and politicians. And today, the cult of celebrity has crossed over politics and pop culture and academia and media and celebrity. It's all kind of one thing. You're either famous or you're not. But the reason you're famous is less important than the fact that you are famous. So we almost valorize politicians now. And you're right, they never pay the price. Look at what Barack Obama did during his 8 years. And now everywhere he goes, he can fly all over the world private. He has tens of millions of dollars, even though he earned $400,000 a year as president, somehow magically. He can travel around the world without a passport, for the most part. He can have multiple houses. Everywhere he goes, people will call him Mr. President, even though he's not the president. And he'll enjoy Secret Service security for decades. He's only 50-something, maybe 60 years old. He might be on the Supreme Court, but nonetheless, he's going to be around for a long time. And that whole time, he will be treated basically as royalty. And there's something really bizarre about this. This is a guy who signed the NDAA. This is a guy who ordered drone strikes in Yemen. This is a guy who did all kinds of terrible things in Libya. Didn't get us out of Iran, in Afghanistan. Someday Trump will be an ex-president. I don't know if he'll be treated as well, but we have this desire to sanctify people, and maybe even at, as pathetic as it sounds, maybe even at the level of mayor of Nashville, that just does something psychologically or mentally that makes someone like this mayor act like he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the fine line between adoration and murder, that we lift people up and then we tear them down once they've been become fashionably, incorrect or something. But you're speaking about celebrities, and I saw on Twitter Rob Schneider, the comedian, he quoted the namesake of your organization, Ludwig von Mises. He said, "The struggle for freedom is ultimately not resistance to autocrats or oligarchs, but resistance to the despotism of public opinion." What does that mean? That's interesting.
Yeah, it always comes down to public opinion at the end of the day, doesn't it? I mean, we give our sanction, in effect, to the political class. And I'm not saying by voting for them. I don't think voting creates meaningful consent in a country of 330 million people. At most, voting creates some kind of quasi-valid consent in a small town somewhere of 1,000 people. But we give them our sanction by allowing it to continue. And that's just inertia. We're all busy. We all have lives. We all have mortgages. We have kids. We have problems. We have health issues. We have bills. We have worries about the future. So, that's a big reason why politicians get away with what they do, because we're distracted and stressed and busy about our own lives. But, while we're distracted, they're going about their business, and year after year, decade after decade, they have basically weakened the foundation around us, and now you can feel it. We live in an increasingly lawless society. So I think Mises was saying that it's up to us.
Yeah, it's not something you can project onto a politician if ultimately they're a reflection of the crowd that is manifesting these kind of terrible things. But I think, Jeff, that the credibility of politics has never been more exposed to the masses as really empty. I saw that story that came out earlier this week where Bill Gates was coming out saying, I couldn't believe my eyes. I saw the headline, and it was just so funny to me. The headline was saying, Bill Gates questions the credibility of the FDA's new vaccine. And I said, what in the world? The plots for these things are so transparently power driven and politically charged, right? And it's like how much more naked does this whole game start to look to the public for hopefully the first time, maybe for millions of people, to say, wait a second, you guys have been telling us just sit at home, get on unemployment, get on welfare, whatever. Don't, have everything dropped to you from Amazon. Just stay in the house. Don't get fresh air. Wear a mask when you walk in a forest. Wear a mask when you go to get the mail. And let Bill Gates and everybody figure it out for you. And then Bill Gates says, I don't trust this vaccine from the FDA. And I'm like, what in the heck is going on? This is not a credible storyline to follow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he doesn't like the competition. But what I think also what he's saying is I don't trust Trump's FDA. So there's a lot to that. But, if you look at vaccines, in the past, we've never had a successful vaccine for a lot of cold and flu strains. We've never had a successful vaccine for HIV. And in the cases where we have had successful vaccines for things like polio, they took a lot more than 8 months to develop. And even then, they were less than 100% effective. So the idea that I think Trump made a huge strategic error the other night when he was talking about having a vaccine in October or November. I think that's a foolish thing to say, and it's not doing him any favors.
Well, the great thing about Trump, though, it's just amazing, is that Trump, he destroys all the big sacred cows of politics. Remember, they tried to do the impeachment, and he broke the powerful aura of impeachment. They put him in the impeachment machine, and it just like, no, Trump, you ruined it. It's not so powerful anymore. And now, with this thing of him coming out and politicizing, getting vaccines out, now all of a sudden the politically correct crowd, he somehow found a way to turn them against vaccine politics from centralized government. Isn't it amazing? He just ruins everything.
Yeah, now he's saying that Biden should stop his irresponsible anti-vax talk. Right. Because, so that's Trump being Trump. He's not a guy who values consistency, but he's certainly a master when it comes to the thrust and parry of using social media against your critics.
Yeah, he's found a way to turn the mainstream media into an anti-vax thing, where now they keep saying, well, we need to make sure this is a safe and effective vaccine. I'm like, you never used those terminologies until Trump got on board with this get a vaccine thing out quickly. We'll continue in just a moment live with Jeff Deist. You can follow Jeff Deist at Jeff Deist on Twitter. Also, check out Mises.org, which Jeff Deist is the president of. It's a place where you can learn about how markets work, how price works, how savings work, and what's going on in the economy today in these unprecedented times. We'll continue in just a moment with more on A Neighbor's Choice. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you, Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
I'm attorney Young Kim. The financial problems caused by the coronavirus nightmare are not going away anytime soon. If you are behind on your credit card or mortgage payments, or bill collectors are harassing you, there are ways to get them off your back and legally wipe the slate clean. Call Consumer Law Attorneys at 888-99-FRESH for a free consultation. Learn how we can stop the bank and collection companies and help people in debt get a fresh start. Call 888-99-FRESH, 37374. Main office, St. Petersburg.
Our monetary system is failing. Negative interest rates, growing debt, highly speculative market, and the dollar is being devalued by the Fed. Investing your wealth has never been more challenging. Who wants to earn just 1% interest annually in a savings account? There is another option, monetary metal. They pay interest on gold, in gold, with no storage costs ever. Visit interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. Our website, aneighborschoice.com. You can email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com, if you have a guest question or a suggestion. And we're joined by Jeff Deist, president of the Mises Institute. Their website is mises.org. And I wanted to, ask you, Jeff, I saw your interview with, we talk about culture on this program a lot, and I think, you guys at Mises get into it a little bit there. I saw your recent podcast with comedian Dave Smith. And you guys had some interesting, discussions about, the culture and how all that kind of is a foundational thing. And one thing you guys were talking about is, the comedian Dave Smith was saying that the truth of the matter is most people are kind of unimpressive, and yet the media, they really like to cloak their work as if they don't just have an opinion. They are telling you this is reality itself. This, everything they say, if we need to go to war, right? They say, all of the experts say this happened. We have to go get rid of Assad. If they want to put us in a lockdown, all of the experts have said, and we're just telling you reality itself. And there's this self-righteousness, right? There's this self-importance about the media. And much of the media is just media talking about media, isn't it? It's just like this echo chamber, and we're all in the middle of it.
Yes, they do that all the time. If you spend much time on Twitter, you'll constantly see journalists sniping at each other and talking about each other's articles. So they'll make an article out of lambasting another journalist's article. Like Fox News continues to report conspiracy theory, and sometimes they'll just report on tweets. Some politician or celebrity has some tweets, and they'll make a story out of that. Well, that's not news, okay? That's not reporting. And what these people have done is they've created a class that we would call official or mainstream media. And then the internet came along with social media and kind of, threatened their foundation a little bit. And they're nervous about it. They don't like it. The fact that anybody can respond to an article, the fact that anybody can go out and report on something happening with a cell phone camera and put it on social media and scoop them. The fact that average people can basically be editorialists all day long on social media, they don't like any of this. They want to be the institutional press with sort of the monopoly on telling us how to think. And part of the way they pursue this is they imagine that the First Amendment creates some sacred role for an institutional press. It does nothing of the sort. The First Amendment just applies to individuals. We're all the media with respect to First Amendment protections. In fact, if you go back to colonial times, when the Bill of Rights was being written, there were all kinds of yellow journalists. There were all kinds of small publications, pamphleteers, people telling outrageous fabrications and lies. We didn't really have the libel and slander laws that we have today. It was a very wild west of what they used to call yellow dog journalism. People would say outrageous things about political candidates, for example, and their families or their manhood or their character, really funny stuff. So there was never this distinction that the institutional press has some special right under the First Amendment to access. Like some guy from CNN has no greater right to be at a White House press conference than David Gornosky. Mm-hmm. None whatsoever. Mm. Now, as a practical matter, the White House press room only has so many seats, and I guess they have to issue credentials. And so, unfortunately, CNN's probably going to get a credential before David Gornosky, but there's no constitutional reason why that should be so. And as a matter of fact, once you have the ability to broadcast those press conferences via internet to everyone in real time, there's no need to have an institutional press in there watching. I mean, you and I should just be out there watching and asking questions or taking notes or whatever if we care to. We're the press. We're the media. Right. So it was really always just packaged as this noble industry. But at the end of the day, it just exists to sell ads. Yeah. Right. That's the reason Fox News and CNN and all these companies exist, is to sell ads. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly well and good. There's in between Wolf Blitzer, there's an ad for the new Toyota Camry, and that's how that's what makes the world go round. It's called commerce. Nothing wrong with it. But to act like it's somehow sacrosanct in American history or under the American Constitution is just absolute nonsense. Excuse me. CNN's role in crafting, the American electorate, or crafting our future, whatever, is no more noble or important than your local dry cleaner or your local Mexican restaurant. They're just a little bit bigger for-profit business. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So we need to get this clear. These are not particularly important people. These are not particularly smart people in many cases, particularly educated, particularly knowledgeable. They sit in front of a camera. Some of them, especially the females, tend to be pretty, and they read from a teleprompter. These are not people who ought to have any authority over your life.
Jeff, there's a reason why the left never could do well in talk radio, because you don't have a teleprompter. It's just magic when you can speak from the heart, and your ideas, if they're fake, they're not rooted in the heart. It's hard to do that for 3 hours or 2 hours or whatever without a teleprompter. Jeff, always a pleasure to have you, and we'll talk again soon. How about that?
Thank you.
And visit Mises.org, would you? It's a place I like to go to for understanding the economy, because there's so much media that's just bent on a political agenda, and I like to go to a place that's not interested in, pushing one candidate or another, but just going to give me the facts of how economics work, right? If your pocketbook works with supply and demand in your own household, it's going to have similar principles at a macro scale like our nation and the world economy. And that's why I like a common sense approach that's based in reality and not just fancy equations. Mises.org is a great place for that. I'm David Gornosky. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. Godspeed.